Hey everyone, and welcome back to the news. Today it's a little bit of a quickie. It's one that on the face of it is actually really good, but of course there potentially is a but. Altruism from Electronic Arts. It's actually kind of, so in a way, sort of good. We'll get into the but we'll go to it, right? So there's a patent pledge for increasing accessibility in games from EA. Electronic Arts promises not to enforce against any party for infringing any of the listed EA patents. A list of patents subject to this pledge can be found below, and EA may add additional patents to this pledge at a later date. So let's talk about what the patents actually are. The ping system that allows players to transmit contextually aware audio and visual communications generated via mappable controller inputs. Basically, it's the pinging system of Apex Legends, which, I think is a great thing. I'm surprised that's a patented thing. Honestly, I feel like anyone should have been able to do that.
I mean, that's the thing that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing because we covered patents a decent while ago on the new channel. Like, I went a little bit into the history of them in games and how they're used, and it is highly specific stuff they use, but It also could mean that it's not the overall ping system, because a lot of games have a ping system, a lot of games have different ping systems.
The specific implementation.
Yeah, but it's a specific implementation, and that can include some strange, very specific parts that you would almost want to use. I'm not actually sure what that is for the Apex ping system, outside of the fact that it is the actual implementation that is probably the best in games.
Yeah,
by a substantial margin. And the thing is, because of, you don't have access to the literal code, but because the patent's there, you can see the implementation. You can see the methodology, and you can, now that it's available, you can copy it, including all of the work they've put into it.
Now, to be very clear, it's not that they have opened up their patent.
No.
It's them saying that they will allow you to infringe it.
Yeah.
So you still are infringing it. Just EA have pledged not to do anything about it. Unless, and we'll get to that. So, yeah, there's the ping system. Other ones, then. Image processing that improves visibility of colors to optimize for color vision deficiencies. So, I suppose there you could look at the patent, see how they have done it, and if you want to do it that way to help people with, various color blindnesses or whatever, then, yeah, follow that. That's good. Mm-hmm. Automatically detecting contrast ratios in pixel regions of rendered frames and updating regions having subpar contrast ratios to meet contrast ratio standards or thresholds. Again, for people who are a bit more hard of vision, stuff like that is super, super, super handy. Great stuff. And also generating personalized music based on a user's hearing information and stylistic preference to best comport with that user's hearing issues. Now, this is the sort of thing, if you're not somebody who would use these accessibility features, it's not going to be that important for you. But there's really a lot of people. Especially colorblindness. That is a very, very common thing. So it's great that this stuff is being opened up. And certainly the one for the Apex, the pinging system, that's technically an accessibility feature. I would say it's a core gameplay feature that's greatly improves the playing experience of Apex Legends. Now, really, we only played in the first 2 or 3 seasons, so couldn't tell you exactly if that stuff has changed in Apex, but at least my first impression when I saw it was wow, this is the best pinging system I've ever seen. Awesome. And if more games can easily have something like that, then that totally is a good thing. As for the why, well, EA say they believe it's imperative to meet the needs of diverse populations in gaming, including those with disabilities, and through their patent pledge, they're committing that every developer in the industry will be able to use their accessibility-centered technology patents royalty-free. The pledge covers some of our most innovative technologies designed to break down barriers for players living with disabilities or medical issues. On the face, I want to say this is all fantastic. I totally support it happening. Great. Now, there is a little bit of a but, because we do have to talk about some of the language here. So, the but. EA reserves the right to terminate this pledge for a specific party or its affiliates going forward if that party files a patent infringement lawsuit or other patent proceeding against EA, its affiliates, or partners. So this really means, this does mean what it means on face value. Another thing that it does mean, though, is that EA can leverage this, because if they find that another company is infringing on their patent, but that falls within their pledge, well, it kind of gives them free rein to start sniping whatever they want as well. You know, it's perhaps unfair to claim that this is their plan, because this does seem like a solid altruistic move, and that this is just some legal housekeeping, but certainly it's a little bit of a bat they could wield. Like if another party did, start proceeding against EA or something, and that party happened to be using something that could fall within this patent pledge. But overall, I would say that this is a good thing. This is a great precedent. As you say here, pick your metaphor: a rising tide lifts all boats, or standing the shoulders of giants. But either way, EA are doing some good, hard work on these accessibility things, and this can now help other game developers, and that's just a good thing. And you say, if, for example, PlayStation Studios made their methodologies freely available, then the insanely good work in God of War, Spider-Man, and The Last of Us Part 2, to name a few, would help others. And certainly that's one thing you'll notice. I'd taken quite a while off console gaming before I played The Last of Us Part 2, funny enough. And one of the things that did impress me, as much as I had many opinions about that game, really, I was so impressed by the accessibility features. And then opening up Ratchet & Clank recently. Again, wow. And some of those accessibility features, to some people, and within the context of a single-player game, it's a lot more cool. There's some of those things where people could just tune and tweak the game the way they want. I mean, even take a game like, this is a funny one for me, Uncharted 4. Because I played that at a time where I had not used the gamepad for any form of game like that in so long, that basically it was not super fun because the controls were getting in the way for me. And one of their accessibility things was an auto-aim. And I kind of thought, well, you know what? I'm not playing Uncharted to, be some sweaty god gamer. Like, my version of that is Ladder in StarCraft 2 or something. So I felt okay to turn it on. And you know what? I actually thought Uncharted 4 was way more fun with the auto-aim, because Naughty Dog's gunplay is really just okay, but their movement did feel pretty good in that game, especially the rope swinging. So with the auto-aim turned on, you actually had a playstyle that went a little bit less cover shooter, and it kind of let you double down a little bit more in movement and stuff. So I even enjoyed that a bit more. But yeah, anyway, actual point, Sony are incredible at accessibility. It would be cool if they did similar, and we certainly support EA doing this.
Yeah, there's an anecdote I wanted to bring up from Steve Saylor. So that's a blind gamer who got an early review copy of The Last of Us Part 2, and he wanted to record a reaction for his YouTube channel, but he just, as soon as he opened the game, he basically started crying uncontrollably, because, and these are his words that he spoke to CNN, I was expecting to record a really exciting hype moment showing the first time I see all the accessibility settings, but basically the second I started up the game, I was hearing a text-to-speech read off every single accessibility option. To be honest, the floodgates just kind of opened. I couldn't stop crying for a solid 10 minutes. It was like everything I've been working for in the past 5 years. My efforts with disability consulting and advocating for more accessibility in games finally paid off. And that's a game that's so good that you can play it blind, because they've got all of the audio features absolutely perfect. They've got all of the narration completely perfect. Yeah. And that's just insane.
Something I could see people maybe, looking down at that, like, oh, really, you cried at a menu option. But I think it's important for people to realize that, for those of us who, don't have those disabilities, we never see that problem. No. And this is a problem of those people. Many of them have been, fighting their corner there for years and years and years and years. So, imagine, even if it's something that doesn't seem big to you, imagine there is something that is pretty impactful to you. And, you've been advocating for it for years and years and years. And then finally, in the big budget blockbuster thing, you actually see those things there. For a lot of people, that's going to be a very big moment.
Yeah, I mean, that's the market of games. That's because people talk about accessibility, and a lot of people kind of conflate accessibility with a lot of the arguments around difficulty that people have with games. They're like, oh, well, people say, Dark Souls needs an easy mode, and everyone says, no, it doesn't, just get good. And then people go, but accessibility. But this is a completely different angle. This is a literal, this is a user interface level of accessibility, where it's someone literally can't see that well, so they turn on an option so they can see it better. I think The Last of Us Part 2 it's a high contrast mode, where enemies are like bright red.
Yeah.
And allies are bright blue.
That is in Ratchet as well, I think.
Nice, because that's the kind of thing where, you could put that on. That's easy mode to someone with sight. But if someone is really significantly visually impaired, then suddenly they actually can see an enemy.
Yeah, it's bringing, I mean, for just say recognizing enemies, it's bringing them to what we just get by default.
Yeah.
For not even trying.
Mm-hmm.
So, if me and you turned it on, sure, it would be easy mode for us, but it's not for the person for whom that option is actually designed.
Yeah, it's a completely different ballgame. And I kind of get annoyed when people start to conflate difficulty with accessibility in other ways, because people do it on all sides of every argument. But stuff like this is really, really, like, it doesn't really matter to me, but it is exciting to have this stuff happen and be considered. Like the Xbox Adaptive Controller, for example.
Awesome.
That shit's amazing. Like,
and I think it's logically consistent. Like I do believe, and I think you do as well, the Dark Souls should not have an easy mode.
Yep.
You can have that opinion and also be very pro all of these accessibility options. They're not mutually exclusive things. Yep. So yeah, basically, a little bit of a highlighting of Sony doing excellent work in this space, and then also EA. There is a but, because we should be doing things with a little bit of skepticism turned on when we are dealing with these very large corps. But on the face of it, and for the in the vast majority of cases where this is actually being engaged with, by developers, this is just EA doing a good thing. And of course, when EA does a bad thing, we're going to hop on and talk about that. But that does mean that when EA does a good thing, we should also hop on and talk about that, because it's only fair.
absolutely.
And I think when if you're willing to talk about a company whenever they're doing a positive thing, that means whenever you're talking about a negative thing, you've got a lot more credibility, because you're actually being balanced. So I'm sure they'll cock something up soon, but this is a real good thing, and we should definitely praise them for it and encourage others in the industry to make similar pledges.
Yep.
So that's that story. I think
it is.
and a neat bow. With that said, then, thanks for watching. Hope you found this to be an interesting one. We'll see you next time.